It's been 5 years since Doom Eternal completely changed my fucking brain chemistry and became one of my all-time favorite video games. 5 years of anticipating the next Doom release. I've been a massive Doom fan since I first played through the classic games in college. This was in like 2012, 2013, something like that. I loved Doom 2016 when that game first came out. Doom 2016 was the first review that we ever made for this channel, and I absolutely loved Doom Eternal when that came out 4 years later, which the review for that helped kickstart the first channel revival that year. I honestly believe Eternal to be the best made game of all time. No other game comes close to matching its perfect balance of complexity, fast pace, and addicting fun. In the back of my mind, I have been anticipating the next Doom release, but I wasn't sure what to expect. Would they make Doom Eternal 2? I would have been happy with that, but I also know that id likes to experiment and shake things up. Would I be okay with a fundamentally different Doom? I thought, well, as long as it maintained what I feel is the core franchise feel of Doom, I would be happy. Just don't give me another Doom 3. And well, Doom the Dark Ages has proven to be quite the divisive release. Myself included was extremely skeptical leading up to its release. Some people may even say I was a negative bitch, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't filled with absolute hype the weeks leading up to the game's release. I was skeptical, but I can't not be excited for a new Doom. Despite my reservations, I went into Doom the Dark Ages with an open mind, and I love it. Nearly every single one of my worries and criticisms leading up to the release was proven wrong, and the few that weren't proven wrong turned out to be not that big of a deal. Doom the Dark Ages has taught me a very important lesson: trust in id. And more important, trust the process. Id know what the fuck they're doing. They understand their fan base better than any other AAA developer out there, and more importantly, they understand their IPs. Something that became apparent to me the second I booted up the game. It understands how to deliver on experiences that I didn't even know that I wanted, and more importantly, I am not a game developer. I am just a fan of these games, an opinionated fan. And while there's always potential for the games that I love to be fucked up and turned into something I don't like, sometimes you just need to trust the process. When Doom 2016 came out, I went through my entire first playthrough thinking, upgrades aren't Doom, and I played through the entire game without getting any upgrades. And later on, when I replayed it and played through the game properly, upgrading and experiencing everything that 2016 had to offer, I had a much better experience. My stubborn rejection of any element that wasn't classic Doom ruined my first playthrough of the game. Even though I still really liked it, I didn't like it as much as I could have. The same thing happened with Doom Eternal. When they announced the third-person cutscenes and extra lives, I was like, what the fuck, this isn't Doom. Then I saw the first gameplay trailer and all my worries disappeared. The game came out and it was a masterpiece, and now I can never believe I ever had even a remotely negative feeling towards it. And now with Doom the Dark Ages, because of the pre-release footage, I was worried it was going to be slow, simplistic, casual. I hated the difficulty slider and believed it would have extreme negative impacts on game balance. The open zone level design had me concerned that the game would be too big and empty. It looked far less complex than Eternal. Wait, there's a parry system in Doom? I fucking hate parry mechanics in games. Stand and fight? Doesn't that go against the push-forward philosophy of Doom? What are these set-piece sections with a dragon and a mech? This doesn't look like Doom, this doesn't feel like Doom. And then I played the game, and this was my initial reaction. I was wrong, and I am glad I was wrong. That's 3 games now that I had an irrational, negative reaction to a new release in my favorite game franchise before it even came out, only for me to be entirely proven wrong when I actually sat down to play the game. Why am I starting my review off like this? Because I think there are a lot of people that are out there that feed off of their own negativity. They get into their own heads that they don't like something prematurely, and it prevents them from finding joy in an experience that they otherwise probably would have enjoyed. And I'm not saying people need to like everything. I'm not about that toxic positivity shit either. I'm plenty negative when it comes to games I don't like. I believe everybody has the right to be negative and not like something and be vocal about what they don't like. The let people enjoy things mentality is stupid. Debate, critique, analyze. And I'm not saying the Dark Ages is a perfect game. It's fine to not like it. It's fine to have issues with it. I have some issues with it. Hell, even though I really like it, I still like Eternal better. But the Doom franchise feel is so baked into the core DNA of the Dark Ages. This isn't a modern God of War scenario at all, where they threw away what makes the Doom games great. It's a different Doom. A new Doom, but it's still Doom. So with that lengthy introduction out of the way, let's actually talk about the game. The first thing you'll notice is the game is not slow. The pre-release videos and discussions had me worried, showing a slower speed to gameplay, describing Doomguy as heavier and like a tank, not a fighter jet. And yet, first booting up the game, it's fast. A setting recommendation, turn on always sprint. Yes, the Dark Ages has a sprint, but it's not like in a game like Halo. You don't just get a momentary speed boost until you gas out of stamina and you can still shoot while sprinting. It operates like running in Classic Doom does. Yes, Classic Doom has a sprint, and most people just play with always run turned on, giving those games their signature speed feel. The same applies to the Dark Ages. Just do yourself a favor and turn on always sprint. The base sprint movement speed in the Dark Ages is faster than in 2016 in Eternal, and going back to those games after spending a few hours in the Dark Ages makes those games feel slow. Why they marketed this game as being slower will continue to baffle me because it isn't slow at all. And more than that, it's fairly vertical too. Now you won't be double jumping around or meat hooking to enemies and platforming to locations, but you can jump around a map, climb up ledges, and utilize the new shield bash mechanic to zip around the enemies and give yourself a bit of a vertical advantage. Combat speed matches the movement speed. There's a lot going on at all times, and if you aren't paying attention or standing in one place, you will die. Even if you're blocking, the shield will break. The push-forward mentality of Doom is definitely still here, and the game will punish you for failing map awareness or failing to move around smartly on a map. Doom the Dark Ages is simpler than Doom Eternal, but it's complex in its own way. Eternal was complex because there were a lot of systems happening in tandem with one another, pulling you into the fun zone when you finally understand the synergy between those systems. You had 2 grenade types, a chainsaw, flame belch, blood punch, 8 different weapons with different weapon mods, the crucible, the sentinel hammer, the dash. You had to balance your armor and health using your tools, making sure you were paying attention to when you could use the flame belch for armor or judging the correct moment to blood punch to get out of a hairy situation or reward yourself with extra health. Add in the higher level of verticality, quick swapping combo mechanics, enemy weak points, and enemies like the Archvile or Marauder in an arena, and you had a very complex, fast-paced combat experience. A combat experience that required quick thinking and an understanding of the mechanics to succeed at higher difficulties. The Dark Ages, in contrast, doesn't have the flame belch or chainsaw, or blood punch, or a dash, or multiple swappable weapon mods, or a meat hook, but it does have 3 melee weapons to use, 4 different rune abilities to use with upgrades, 5 different weapon classes with 2 weapons in each to master and swap between, plus the Reaver, the BFC, and the Buzz Shield. You don't get armor with Flame Belch, but you can set enemies on fire and get armor with Combat Shotgun, or the Flail. You don't have a chainsaw for ammo and an insta-kill, but you do have a melee attack that awards ammo and can be comboed in a melee string or alongside a gun to do massive damage. You don't have the meat hook to swing to enemies, but you do have the shield bash, which pulls you into an enemy, giving you enhanced mobility and pulling you in close for a super shotgun melee combo. Add the shield throw into your combo for a stun. While weapon swapping is slower, you can still combo your guns in fun ways to use. Use the plasma cycler to set electrical effect on enemies, and then switch to something like the super shotgun, rocket launcher, or Reaver to deal heavy damage and kill an enemy quickly, setting off chain lightning that dances between enemies. So I actually fucking hate parry mechanics in most games. For some reason, it's my mechanics Achilles heel. I fucking suck at it, and I can't seem to get it down in nearly any game I play. The parry focus to combat ruined Sekiro for me, as a massive Soulsborne fan who played both the original and remake for Demon Souls, all 3 Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring, and loved all of them. I gave up on Sekiro before the second boss because I just couldn't vibe with it. Same with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. As a massive Star Wars fan, these Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor games are the only Disney canon Star Wars stories that I actually like, and I couldn't finish Jedi Survivor. I got stuck on Ravis's wannabe dirge head ass, all because I couldn't get parrying down in that game. So the fear of parrying was real when it was announced that Doom the Dark Ages would have a parry. And thankfully, it isn't that bad. In fact, I would say it's very forgiving, and even a Neanderthal like me can parry pretty okay in the game. I'm not great at it. I flub and miss a lot of parries still. Sometimes I find myself mashing the parry button as soon as I see that green light flash in hopes that I hit that parry. But for most enemies and encounters, simply shooting them until they die, like in every other Doom game, is more than sufficient. This brings me to the difficulty sliders. I did not like the idea of difficulty sliders when they were first announced, something that apparently proved to be an incredibly controversial take, especially when G-Man randomly commented on one of my tweets and a snowball of dickheads started lashing out on my tweet. My opinion at the time was that a difficulty slider would ruin the balance of the game and remove any player accountability or incentive to learn and master the game. My thought was, why would the average player bother learning a game mechanic if they could just tweak that mechanic to have a super easy time with the game? And further, if the game is designed with every player having their own difficulty settings in mind, why would id focus on creating a tight, balanced nightmare setting? It may have been an irrational concern, especially looking at how the Dark Ages turned out, but in a franchise like Doom, player accountability and incentive to learn the game are at the core of what make Doom great. My argument was never about people playing on easy mode. I don't give a shit how other people play their own games. I don't care if you play on easy mode. Classic Doom had an easy mode. Fuck it, play with cheat codes, play with save states, save scum your way through a game, play with rewind features. That's how I beat Rocket Knight. I believe challenge is important, and you should want to be challenged and learn games in a deeper way, but I don't care how you want to play your own games. But Classic Doom also had a design philosophy of player accountability and incentive to master the game, with a large cast of demons to learn how to counter and a large cast of weapons to learn how to use properly. Map management with secret areas and key hunting, resource management with limited health and ammo, and my concern was that the inclusion of sliders, where every aspect of the game can be fine-tuned, would remove that incentive. Now, after release, I don't feel that way. For one, I think Nightmare is brilliantly balanced. Sure, some areas toward the beginning can be a little too easy, but I genuinely don't feel like id left any balancing up to the players to fix with the sliders. I am incredibly happy with how base Nightmare feels, and believe that that difficulty option is fair and challenging and provides the perfect gameplay experience for 99% of all the Dark Ages players. Additionally, id has already been tweaking balance to the game since release, buffing Hell Knights, which used to be able to be killed in a single super shotgun blast, adding more or different enemies to different arenas. It really seems like it is aware of the player base and are really trying to create the absolute best balanced experience on the base Nightmare setting. Now, messing with the sliders for a while, I still haven't changed my mind that they create an entirely unbalanced gameplay experience. You can very easily make the game too easy or too hard. One thing I felt playing through the game was that I wasn't running low on ammo enough, and wanted my resources lessened to pressure me into meleeing more for ammo and to utilize more of my arsenal. And while lowering the resource slider does do that, the Dark Ages also isn't balanced like Eternal is. There isn't a one-shot kill chainsaw that gives you all of your ammo back. There's a slowly rebuilding melee weapon that, with the resources turned all the way down, only give you like 3 bullets per strike. So while, yeah, I felt the pressure of running out of ammo, it wasn't balanced in a way where I could relieve that pressure, like in Doom Eternal. So ultimately, I didn't enjoy playing that way, especially on a new playthrough where you don't have all of your weapons and upgrades yet. It results in a frustrating experience where you're just out of ammo all the time. Doom Eternal haters should try playing that way and then say that Doom Eternal doesn't give you any ammo. Another setting I tried was max speed, and I don't really like that either. It just feels like the game was being played in fast forward, especially evident by these sped up chipmunk voices from the dialogue in the game.
Keep it ground zero. Key located.
It doesn't make the gameplay or combat feel faster, it just makes it feel like it's in fast forward and it's skipping through. I think 100% speed is plenty fast, and I don't think increasing beyond that adds much more to the game. There are a handful of settings that I did like to create kind of a Nightmare Plus experience that adds a little bit more challenge but still felt fairly balanced. I dropped the parry window down to the lowest and increased enemy attack speed to the max. I think the game feels alright with those settings, an increase in challenge that doesn't feel overly unbalanced, and I also liked messing around with both the demon damage and player damage at max. This isn't a setting that I would play with all the time, definitely not my go-to, but it is a fun mode to play with. Kind of similar to Heaven and Hell mode in Devil May Cry, where demons will die in 1 or 2 hits, but you will also die in 1 or 2 hits. It's not very balanced, but it is very fun. Doom has never been about big set pieces. Cutscenes are few and far between, and the games are always just core gameplay loop. The announcement of the turret, dragon, and mech sections left me a little skeptical. I don't mind the inclusion of dragons and mechs from a lore perspective, in fact I like it. Especially the mechs. I love mechs, mecha anime, mecha games, mecha movies, I'm there. So from a lore perspective, the inclusion of mechs and dragons doesn't bother me and never has. But what about as an addition to the gameplay loop? Well, I will flat out say that I am not a fan of the turret sections, though I'm never really a fan of turret sections in any game. They're my least favorite part in pretty much every game that I play, and this is no exception. They aren't especially challenging. I don't even know if it's possible to die during these sections. I don't feel like they add anything to the gameplay loop, other than to pull you away from the fun core gameplay of the Dark Ages. They don't even provide like a badass set piece feel. Luckily there's only like 2 of them and they're very short, but still. The mech section I actually did really like. Not as much as the main gameplay of course, but I think the mech is fun for the few sections that exist in the game. The melee combat feels weighty, the guns are devastating, you feel like a giant badass killing titans like they're fodder demons. And killing multiple titans in one finishing shot is so satisfying. I might feel a little bit differently if these sections were longer or if there were more of them, but as it is in the game, I genuinely like these sections. The dragon, I'm mixed on. On one hand, I do genuinely like the gameplay mechanics of flying around and shooting. There aren't enough dragon dogfight games out there. It's kind of like Star Fox with a dragon. It reminds me of like a good lair. Perfect dodging and then knocking out a couple turrets with one power-up period is so satisfying. But I don't really think it fits the feel of Doom. It's not the inclusion of the dragon, it's just that flying around like that doesn't feel like Doom. I also don't understand why Hell needs these little fighter jet things. Making them some sort of flying demon instead of a fighter ship would have gone a long way towards making it feel more like Doom. Maybe even demon dragons like, oh, I don't know, the Maledict? Something that already exists in Doom? Like maybe Doomguy and the Sentinels get rideable dragons to counter the forces of Hell, arriving with an army of cultists turned into Maledict dragons? It would fit the tone and world of Doom a lot better than these weird demon spaceships, at least in my opinion. As it is, it actually feels like this would fit better in like Quake 2, like these are Strogg ships or something. Now, these sections are broken up with being able to land and knock out an arena on foot, and that definitely makes these parts better and feel more like Doom. Glory killing titans with the dragon is also badass, but I feel like I would also enjoy these sections even more if they were their own game or tied to a different, more suitable IP. Like with the mech and turret, I think there are only like 2 dragon sections in the whole game, so it's not like these take up much of the entirety of the game. The tone is very much Doom. I'm going to touch more on it in a later section, but Doom the Dark Ages very much looks and feels like a Doom game. From the music, to the visual design, to the lore, and the story. I don't really have much to complain about here. In my personal experience, the game ran great. My computer is pretty good. I'm running a 4070 Ti Super graphics card in my rig, which is of course ray tracing compatible. Typically, I don't really like ray tracing. I find that it makes most games look wet and plasticky, but it doesn't look bad in the Dark Ages. I'd probably prefer manual lighting systems or whatever, but it's a minor thing. The game looks good. I did play without any DLSS though. I'm not a fan of AI generated frames and feel it results in ugly smearing and doesn't really offer the benefits of smooth gameplay that real frames provide. So I played with TAA rendering. I was easily running between 90 and 100 FPS my entire playthrough at 1080p with maxed graphics settings. I also recommend setting the HUD to the classic setting to get the classic Doom guy looking around. Since the Dark Ages doesn't have the classic weapon pose, which centers the gun, which is the superior way to play 2016 and Eternal, this is a nice compromise to give the game a bit of that classic feel, and it's just cool seeing classic Doom guy's face looking around. Doom the Dark Ages chronologically takes place between Doom 64 and Doom 2016, filling in some of the gap between Doom 64's end, where Doom Guy decides to re-enter Hell to wage eternal war on the demons, and Doom 2016's beginning, where Doom Guy has become the Slayer and is sealed in the sarcophagus. In the Dark Ages, Doom Guy is already the Slayer, having already gone through the Divinity Machine. He is already allied with the Sentinels and the Makers. The game starts with Doom Guy under some mind control tether, basically becoming a weapon for the Makers to use with no autonomy. The main villain is a demon prince named Azrak, who has entered a secret alliance with a witch from the newly introduced Chaos Dimension, a dimension full of Lovecraftian-inspired horrors, including the Ancient One, Cthulhu himself. Doom Guy eventually breaks free from the Maker's influence, wages war against the forces of Hell and the Chaos Realm, allies with King Novak, his daughter Thera, and the rest of the Sentinels. If you're listening to this and thinking this doesn't really sound like Doom, I have to agree. The story is out there. It's grand in scale, packed with lore, and it's a far cry from the simple story of classic Doom, of one Marine's revenge against the forces of Hell for killing his pet bunny. But as the great John Carmack once said, story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important. And I hold this quote true for Doom. I am not a lore nerd when it comes to Doom. I have never read a single Codex entry, not in 2016, not in Eternal, and again, not in the Dark Ages. As long as the story just shows Doom Guy doing cool shit, that's all I really care about. Though I do have a couple minor complaints about the story here. One, I do wish we were able to play a little bit before Doom Guy enters the Divinity Machine and becomes the Slayer. I wish it picked up a little bit closer to Doom 64's ending and showed how his relationship with the Sentinels developed and showed how he was initially imprisoned by the Makers. Two, and this is more of a nitpick, but you are clearly killing Titans with mechs, dragons, and turrets in this game. In Doom Eternal, it's stated that Titans cannot be killed and only frozen by breaking off a crucible inside it. It was how Doom Guy defeats the Icon of Sin. So if Titans were killable the whole time, what significance does the Crucible really have?
If the Crucible blade is removed, the Titan will rise again.
3, I don't really get what's going on with Thera. She's revealed to have this weird ancient connection with the cosmic realm and develops these tentacle powers, and I don't really get why she's so special or why none of the other Sentinels can develop these powers. And 4, the introduction of the cosmic realm in a prequel where the cosmic realm is never mentioned in the two games that happen later chronologically. What happens to it? I feel like it's an awkward retcon to include it when there is nothing related to the cosmic realm in Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal. Despite this though, again, story in Doom is like story in porn, and my subsequent playthroughs of the game look like this. So I'm not complaining that much, and when it comes to Doom, the gameplay is the most important anyways. I also love Doom Guy's redesign in this game. It's actually become my favorite look for him alongside the classic armor design. The fur cape was such a great decision, the new armor looks fantastic. And as I already touched on in the last section, I really liked the gameplay. It's not Doom Eternal again, but I genuinely like the experience that the Dark Ages offers. This is a different Doom game, but as I said in the last section, the core DNA of what makes Doom, specifically modern Doom, great is still very much here. The game is still very fast. Like I said, the base movement speed is the fastest it's ever been. Doom Guy moves with a weightiness to him now. Each step has this thunderous echo as you stomp your way through a battlefield. Landing after a large jump creates a shockwave that kills weaker demons and damages stronger demons. I think calling Doom Guy a tank was a bit of a disservice. He's more like a mech, heavy and powerful, yet still fast and mobile. There are 13 guns in the game and 3 melee weapons. No grenades, but it does have the Buzz Shield, compared to the classic Doom games which have 7 guns and 2 melee weapons. Doom 2016, which had 9 guns, 1 melee weapon, 2 types of grenades, and the hologram, and Doom Eternal, which has 9 guns, 3 melee weapons, 2 grenades, and the Flame Belch. So the weapon variety is very much on par with the rest of the franchise. The weapons in the Dark Ages include the Combat Shotgun, the Super Shotgun, the Cycler, the Accelerator, the Shredder, the Impaler, the Pulverizer, the Ravager, the Grenade Launcher, the Rocket Launcher, the Reaver Chainshot, the Gauntlets, the Flail, the Dread Mace, the Buzz Shield, and the Calamity Blade, aka the Big Fucking Crossbow, aka the Bioforce Crossbow, aka the BFC. I call it the Calamity Blade because, let's be real, it's the Calamity Blade from Legacy of Rust. There are also 4 runes which can be equipped at a time. Runes are special abilities that trigger when performing a parry. There's a Fisher attack, a shoulder-mounted machine gun, magical daggers that fly out, and an electrical attack. There are weapon mod upgrades, shield upgrades, and rune upgrades. All these upgrades are purchased at shrines with gold, gems, or crystals found in the levels. I highly recommend upgrading the Buzz Shield first because the Buzz Shield is incredibly useful and incredibly fun to use. It's used to block and parry, it's your primary method of mobility in battle, it can be used to initiate combat, fall back from combat, stun larger demons, break armor, and it's a necessary part in attack combos. I honestly love the inclusion of the shield, it fits so naturally in the Doom combat loop. The runes and weapon upgrades are obviously important to the combat loop and make your attacks more interesting and powerful, but I have to say the way they're implemented really discourages experimentation, at least for me. The weapon upgrades are different this time around, giving you an option between 2 upgrades at each weapon level, giving the game a bit of an RPG feel, and giving players a little freedom to customize their combat experience. But because these can only be changed in a menu, I found that I just kind of picked whatever skills I thought sounded best and left it. I wasn't swapping back and forth between upgrades or trying a new weapon build. Same for the runes. I just picked one that I liked. In my case, it was the shoulder-mounted machine gun. That thing is badass and can melt heavy demons in just a couple parries, and didn't really feel the need to use the other runes beyond just trying them for a while when I first got them. I understand it would be hard to implement a way to swap the weapon upgrades on the fly, but I do wish you could swap the runes on the fly to encourage players to experiment with them and use different runes for different scenarios. Instead of swappable weapon mods like in 2016 in Eternal, the Dark Ages features weapon classes. You can swap between the 2 guns in each class, like how weapon mods worked before. The guns share ammo, but have different uses and functions from one another. The Combat Shotgun and Super Shotgun make up the Shotgun class. The Combat Shotgun is weaker, but has more ammo and can be upgraded to set enemies on fire to get armor. The Super Shotgun fires slower, but is more powerful. In the pre-patched version of the game, it was powerful enough to kill Hell Knights in a single hit, though this is no longer the case. It's still very powerful, and like in every other Doom game, it's my favorite gun and my most used gun in the game. It's definitely my go-to. The Cycler and Accelerator make up the Plasma Gun class. The Cycler is a double-barreled plasma gun that looks similar to the nail gun from Quake, and can be upgraded with lightning attacks. The Accelerator fires at a faster rate and can be upgraded to use the Heat Blast that's become a staple mod for the Plasma Gun in 2016 and Eternal. The Shredder and Impaler make up the Nail Gun mod, like from Quake. The Nail Gun class replaces the Heavy Cannon and Chain Gun, which I will admit the absence of the Chain Gun feels a little wrong to me, and I missed it. The Shredder is a fast-firing automatic nail gun that can be upgraded with pincushion or ricochet attacks that cause devastating damage in an area of effect. The Impaler is a slow, single nail-firing precision gun useful for getting headshots on demons and dealing large amounts of damage in short bursts. The Pulverizer and Ravager make up the Skull Crusher class, a new class of weapon where you fire crushed fragments of skulls as ammunition. These guns are badass. The Pulverizer fires in a wide arc useful for mobs of enemies, and the Ravager fires in a more directed path. The Ravager can be upgraded to give health and armor when overheated, resulting in a devastating weapon, especially when used 1v1 against super heavy demons. It's honestly kind of an easy mode gun with dealing with 1v1 fights. The Grenade Launcher and Rocket Launcher both make up the Rocket class. They operate exactly as you'd expect, with the Rocket Launcher lobbing grenades and the Rocket Launcher firing them in a straight line. The Grenade Launcher can be upgraded to Fragment, becoming a good weapon for crowd control, whereas the Rocket Launcher can be upgraded to heal you with splash damage instead of damaging you with a successful parry. Like the Ravager, the Rocket Launcher becomes an incredibly powerful weapon on 1v1s against super heavies with that healing. The chain shot doesn't have another gun in the class with it, and essentially replaces the Gauss cannon or ballista as a powerful railgun-esque weapon. The chain shot fires a powerful electric energy-powered ball on a chain. It can be charged to deal more damage. It's a slower firing weapon, but it's really powerful. It can break armor quickly and is very useful against heavy and super heavy demons. The Calamity Blade, or BFC, also doesn't have a class and functions like the BFG, but doesn't fire out a tendril shot, and instead erupts in a giant explosion, insta-killing almost every demon it makes contact with. Then the 3 melee weapons. The gauntlets, these are the weakest but fastest melee weapons. You punch and kick several times, increasing in power as the combo goes on. The flail, my favorite of the melee weapons. It's slower than the gauntlets but faster than the mace. It can be upgraded to light enemies on fire and awards you with armor shards. And the mace, the strongest but slowest of the melee weapons. Powerful enough to kill heavy demons but has a slow cooldown. The slower attack speed also leaves you more vulnerable to be hit when you're trying to attack. Melee attacking replaces both the chainsaw as a mechanic that gets ammo and glory kills as a mechanic that grants health. There are still glory kills if you perform the melee from in the air, but the glory killing is definitely toned down in favor of these finisher moves. Each melee attack results in the slowdown effect too. After a while of playing, you don't really notice the slowdown anymore, though I do wish you could disable this. Now as for the lack of glory kills, I actually miss them, but not for the same reasons so many other people do. Yes, glory kills were badass and fun and brutal and whatever, but I still feel like a brutal badass killing demons with finishing moves after a melee combo. Personally, I never felt like glory kills pulled me away from the game. I didn't find them too jarring or annoying. They're kill animations that I executed. I have about 100 hours in Doom 2016 and 240 hours in Doom Eternal at this time, which I know is a lot less than a lot of other people out there when it comes to these games, but I personally never got tired of seeing glory kill animations because they're short. I view them as kill animations, not QTEs or cutscenes, and again, they're kill animations that I executed. Removing them felt like fixing a problem that didn't really exist. That said, I understand the Dark Ages is a different experience, and I'm not heartbroken that glory kills didn't make a comeback. You know what other game had weapon classes and melee weapons? Quake, which had the axe, shotgun and super shotgun, nail gun and super nail gun, grenade launcher and rocket launcher, and extra lightning-based weapons. There also aren't any weak points this time around, probably to avoid people crying that the game is forcing you to play a certain way because you could break an Arachnotron's turret with a heavy cannon scoped shot, which you could also break with a shotgun grenade, super shotgun shot, ballista shot, or well, any gun, but I digress. But you can shoot body parts off, like the arms from Hell Knights or Mancubus, but it results in this weird, goofy moment where the demon just stands around with no arms, looking at you and huffing. Like it doesn't attempt to bite or kick you or anything. I know that that's approaching nitpick territory, but it just kind of stands there, waiting for you to kill it. It just accepts its fate, waiting for a shotgun blast to the face. There's an abundance of varied demons this time around. There's 4 different imps, the basic imp, the stone imp, the classic imp, which is much stronger than the basic imp, and the nightmare imp, which is a classic imp but invisible. Mancubus, Hell Knight, and Arachnotrons with armored variants. This time around, Mancubus and Arachnotrons are less mobile, essentially acting as turrets that will fuck you up from far away. There's plasma shield enemies, metal shield enemies, lost souls, the whiplash makes a return, and the cyber demon. The Cacodemon and Baron both got Cosmic Realm redesigns. I'm not big on the Cacodemon one. There's just nothing to the design that screams Cacodemon to me, and it looks more like an Octobrain from Duke Nukem. There are massive pains in the ass in this game though. They do massive amounts of damage, can put up shield walls to block your attacks, and have the hardest long-range attack to parry in the game, at least in my opinion. I feel instant pressure whenever they appear. As for the Baron, this is a Shambler from Quake. It's got the mouth, the claws, the haunch posture. It's a Shambler. The Revenant redesign is really cool, and it has these sickles and looks like a Grim Reaper. They're more mobile than in 2016 and Eternal, often taking to the air for longer periods of time, and even entering an ethereal form where they're invulnerable from attacks. The Vagary from Doom 3 returns as this massive super heavy demon, often appearing in armored forms. They're tanky and can deal massive damage and leave behind pools of acid that restrict your movement and deal damage over time. The Pinky also returns as this giant rideable demon. It doesn't really look like a Pinky to me though. They have a rider on top of them. The rider fires attacks from afar while the Pinky charges and deals melee damage. There are also 2 new additional super heavies. The Agadon Hunter, these are actually the Doom Hunters from Eternal before they got their cybernetic enhancements. If you're too far away from them, they put up these shields so you can't damage them, so you need to watch your positioning very closely against them. Lastly, the Komodo. These guys are real motherfuckers. By far the hardest enemy in the game, they can kill you real quick if you aren't paying attention. Their attacks have weird range and awkward delay, which makes parrying really hard. They also look a bit out of place for a Doom game in my opinion. They're not really representative of how demons typically look, like it's a big lizard, which reminds me of Sorlag from Quake. All this contributes to the Doom dance of the Dark Ages, discovering which weapons you prefer to use against which demons, and how to counter certain demons, learning their attack patterns so you know how to distance yourself and time your parries. Knowing when to melee, along with which runes and weapon mods to use for different encounters, results in an extremely fun and fairly complex experience. Unlike Eternal, which I think rewards overthinking encounters to quick swap combo your way through encounters with speed, I found the Dark Ages rewards you for thinking simpler. Weapon swapping is far slower, so there's actually a moment of vulnerability when you're swapping your weapons, meaning you can take damage or be killed while swapping weapons. I found far more success doubling down on 1 or 2 weapons and focusing on mixing them in with shield combos. Luckily, I found every weapon to be fun and good. There isn't a single weapon that I felt was more overpowered than another, and you can find evidence for this when you see discussions of the Dark Ages where everybody will list a different weapon that they think is OP. And I think that's very indicative to me that people are picking the weapons that they vibe with and finding great success in exploring what those weapons have to offer. I've seen people playing with all sorts of playstyles, favoring different guns and melee weapons. The shield becomes the second part of your weapon combos, instead of a second gun, and you can use it in really fun and creative ways. Initiate combat with a shield bash in, get in close for a super shotgun blast, stun an enemy with shield throw, remove a difficult enemy for a period of time, or stop a revenant from plane shifting, stop a charging Hell Knight before it attacks you, hold a Kako in place so it doesn't create a shield and annoy you from afar. Focus on parrying super heavy attacks, especially the Agadon Hunter, Cyber Demon, and Komodo. This leads me to a difference between arena encounters versus 1v1 encounters, because the approach to both is different. When in an arena, you're going to want to move around a lot. Standing in one place will result in your death. You'll want to kill enemies quickly to not be overwhelmed. The larger arena designs means more demons are on the screen at once. Super heavies are obviously the biggest threat, but sometimes it's best to ignore them for a moment and to kill some basic or heavy demons to not get overwhelmed. The tunnel vision will get you killed. Then, once pressure is lessened, refocus on the super heavies and kill them with 1v1 tactics. The best 1v1 tactics are to use the rocket launcher or the Ravager. These are, like I said, kind of easy mode guns in these situations. Constant streams of health that are very useful against super heavy demons. These tactics are further shaken up with the addition of 2 empowered enemy types. These are the captain units that carry these flags and buff the other demons in the area. Think like the totems or spirits from Eternal, except you need to kill these captains to end the buff. When one of these guys are out, you'll want to focus on killing them so you aren't swarmed by a lot of buffed demons. And then there are these empowered demons, which have these unbreakable shields that will only break when you kill a certain number of other demons in the arena. You'll have to avoid being attacked by them while eliminating enough for their shield to break, and then you can focus on killing that demon. Killing it will result in an end to the arena and award you with a permanent upgrade to either health, armor, or ammo for a certain weapon class. I think combat would be best explored through real-time analysis, and because of that, I'm going to do a follow-up video where I just play through a level or 2 with no script and just talk about parts of the game as I experience them. It really is the best way to explore how the game's combat makes me feel, and I think I would be able to do a better job showcasing the depth better in the throes of gameplay. The level design is pretty good for the most part. I feel like the arenas are well thought out and varied. There's a good mixture of flatness versus verticality. Some encounters occur in closed spaces without a lot of room to run. The larger siege levels can be a little tedious with the backtracking, These levels are enormous, and as you're secret hunting, or sometimes when you die, you'll have to backtrack through large parts of the map, and you'll just be walking for a long time until you hit the next arena. Demons don't respawn, so it's just kind of empty padding traversing through these parts in between arenas. It's probably the only major complaint I have to the level design. Secret hunting is pretty fun. Like the other modern Doom games, you can just see the secret areas in your map, and even see these signals showing you where the keys are, but the fun and challenge from secret hunting comes less from where the fuck am I supposed to go to find the secret, and more from how the fuck do I get to that spot. You'll see the secret on the map, and you'll have to figure out if there's a hidden pathway to jump down to, or a switch to throw your shield to, or a hidden chain to break with your shield. In addition to secrets like collectibles, you can also find currency throughout the level, mounds of gold, rubies, and crystals. These are currency used to buy upgrades at Sentinel Shrines. Gold also often acts as path markers, leading you to the next arena that you're supposed to go to, like in a collectathon. There is no quick travel back through the level to get secrets though, so if you miss anything, you're going to have to replay the whole level over again to find it, which can get pretty annoying. I ended up having to play the first dragon level like 6 times because I kept missing a secret. The quick travel to find secrets was a good inclusion in Doom Eternal, and the lack of its inclusion in the Dark Ages feels weird considering the levels are much larger and longer. Most of the levels take place in Argent D'Nur, the Sentinel realm, this time around, with some levels taking place in Hell, one on Mars, and some taking place in the new Cosmic realm. None of them take place on Earth, which makes sense given the place that this story happens in the timeline. From an aesthetic standpoint, the individual levels are a lot less distinct from Doom Eternal, where I felt like each level had its own unique look and feel, and was easily identifiable. In the Dark Ages, the level design is more muted and monochromatic, and similar to how it was in 2016, and as a result, I feel like the levels kind of blend in with one another. The exception being the Cosmic Realm levels, which I really liked. They're aesthetically so different. The levels are so weird and creative, with puzzles that make you think, with these weird mindfuck cube rooms or areas where you swim vertically to access new areas, and the atmosphere is top-notch. It's so cool and different for Doom. And again, feels like something out of Quake. Alright, I guess this is a good time to address the giant shambler in the room. Doom the Dark Ages feels like a Quake game. I've been mentioning it this entire video. Prior to the game's release, I thought it was going to connect to Quake, with the Cosmic Realm and the Shambler-looking Barons. I know Hugo publicly confirmed that it wasn't related to Quake, and I thought he was lying to throw us off the scent. The entire game, I was waiting for Ranger to appear, or even just to see the Quake rune or something. But upon finishing the game, there was nothing. And I can't help but admit I'm a little disappointed by that. Quake has been dormant for a long time, with Quake Champions releasing in early access nearly a decade ago, and a single-player Quake experience not being made since Quake 4 in 2005. The Dark Ages would have been a perfect way to reintroduce Quake. And you know what? I'm still not even fully convinced that the Dark Ages wasn't originally a Quake game, or at the very least was originally going to tie into Quake in some fashion. With the gothic medieval sci-fi aesthetic, nail guns, Cosmic Realm, Shamblers, grenade launcher, melee weapons, like, I'm not alone in thinking this is Quake, right? Hell, the inclusion of spaceships feels very Strogg from Quake 2, and a flying dragon, which has appeared in Quake before. To destroy these ships could have originally been a way to converge the Quake timelines, the Strogg joining forces with the Cosmic Realm to fight Ranger. I was half expecting Thera to be revealed to be Crash from Quake 3 at some point. Quake 3 describes Crash as Doomguy's trainer, but maybe she wasn't his trainer at the UAC Marines. Maybe she was his trainer at Argent D'Nur. Huh? We still have 2 DLC campaigns coming out, so maybe something will connect there. There's a video made by Ruby Ranger called Doom and Quake Are in the Same Dimension Now, and I highly recommend giving it a watch, because he breaks down some of the nuances of dimensional travel in Doom and Quake and what that means, as well as gives a detailed explanation of dates presented in the Doom and Quake games to give a very strong argument that the modern Doom games take place in the Quake dimension. It's a fan theory, but his argument is so solid, I genuinely believe that that's canon now. Give it a watch. So reiterating, the Cosmic Realm, and dragons, and Sorlag, and Shamblers, and weapon classes, and grenade launchers, and nail guns. Is this Quake? Spaceships? Is this Quake 2? A medieval-inspired setting with medieval-inspired weapons? Is this Heretic? Hexen? Large open arenas with throwable disc weapons? Is this Rage? Gold laying around the map for you to collect? Is this Wolfenstein? Yes. But does Doom the Dark Ages feel like a Doom game? Yeah, it does feel like a Doom game. I said in the first part of the video, it still feels like Doom. The game is still tonally Doom. Hell and the demons is still Doom, but it's deeper than that. See, id games, while certainly existing as their own IP, have always felt like id games. They are always built on each other. The Dark Ages does feel like a Quake game, but it still feels like a Doom game because Quake feels like Doom. Does that make sense? Wolfenstein progressed into Doom, Doom progressed into Quake. The games feel just as much as sequels to one another as they do their own IP. Id has always kind of connected their properties. There was that soft canon that Commander Keen, BJ Blazkowicz from Wolfenstein, and Doom Guy were all related. There are Wolfenstein levels in Doom. A pre-cyber Cyberdemon appears in Wolfenstein RPG. Doom Guy is in Quake, BJ is in Quake. The BFG is in Quake 2 and Rage 2. Splitgates are referenced in Doom Eternal. And the way that the DNA of all of id's past titles kind of manifest in Doom the Dark Ages, whether intentional or not, is really cool to me. I'm sure there's a lot I'm missing and didn't touch on. It's hard to be all-encompassing when it comes to games this massive sometimes. There's a lot to talk about, and I know that despite this video's length, I'm sure I missed something or didn't elaborate enough, which is why I'll be doing 2 more videos on the Dark Ages, a real-time gameplay analysis and a music discussion. As it stands, I like the Dark Ages a lot. I went from being very skeptical and very negative about it pre-release to the Dark Ages being one of my favorite Doom games now after playing it. I still like Eternal the best, but I actually do like the Dark Ages more than Doom 2016, and when I'm in the groove, I can actually make the argument for liking it more than classic Doom 1 or 2 too. And while I do genuinely think Eternal is just a bit of a better game between its pacing, complexity, tone, and level design, a huge part of that comes from external factors too. See, Doom Eternal released in the throes of COVID. The world shut down and my job was closed for over a month. I was still living with my parents, with minimal bills, and I really just had a month to play Doom Eternal with no worries and nothing going on. It was something to look forward to and bring me joy in a troubled and uncertain time. Now, I have a house on my own. I have real adult responsibilities and bills. I work 2 jobs, so my free time is a lot less now than it was when Eternal came out. And trying to balance that free time between spending time with my girlfriend, hanging out with my brother, seeing my friends and family, participating in my other hobbies, and other obligations that I have, like taking care of my house and doing chores, I have far less time to game than I did when Eternal first came out. And as a result, I haven't been able to spend as much time dedicated to the Dark Ages as I was with Eternal. It took me a lot longer to finish for the first time. It's taken me a lot longer to get this video out. And by the time this video actually releases, the Dark Ages would have been out for around 2 months already. In the world of content creation, that's old news. But I love this series, so I'm putting the video out anyways. I first played Classic Doom as a college student, with a lot of free time and no real responsibilities. I played Eternal as a man in my 20s, still living with my parents and having minimal responsibilities. And I play the Dark Ages now as a man in my 30s, with less free time than ever before and real responsibilities. So there is certainly an emotional connection to Eternal that takes me back to a time when I was younger and had more free time. A time when a questionable disease was dominating the news, and Eternal provided a beacon of joy in an uncertain time. I know I'll continue to play the Dark Ages, but I don't know if I'm going to sink the same amount of time into it like I did with Eternal, or be able to spend the time deep diving into mechanics like I did with Eternal, simply because my position in life is very different now. I'm tired, man. With all that said, I still really like the Dark Ages. I'm glad that Doom has stood the test of time, being a franchise I can count on to deliver an experience that I like. To have a franchise library this lean is just unheard of for most franchises. I can't wait for the DLC, and I'll always be there to see what id comes out with next, whether it's Doom, or Quake, or some other IP. Doom may no longer be eternal, but id Software sure is.